Here, however, is where many forget the context of the statement that God has a plan for each one of us. Now, the question is, what is God's purpose, His plan, for those He calls? What is His purpose? What is His plan for those He calls? The text has some boundaries. And unless you understand those boundaries to this text, you will not understand what Paul is trying to say. The text has some boundaries. It has some built-in qualifications. One boundary is, notice in the text, who's this for? What does the text say? For those who what? And that's a present participle there, so it should be translated, for those who are loving the Lord at this time. It's a present participle. That's who the text is for. That's the boundaries of the text. Qualifications for those who are loving the Lord, this promise happens. Have you ever heard the parable of the college student? I know you've heard it. You've seen it on the internet. It's been passed around. But it has some application here to that idea of qualifying this text is for those who are loving the Lord. You remember the story. A young man was getting ready to graduate from college. For many months he had admired a beautiful sports car in a dealer's showroom. And knowing his father could well afford it, he told him that was all that he wanted. As graduation day approached, the young man awaited signs that his father had purchased the car. Finally, on the morning of his graduation, his father called him into his private study. His father told him how proud he was to have such a fine son and told him how much he loved him. He handed his son a beautifully wrapped gift box. Curious and somewhat disappointed, the young man opened the box and found a lovely leather-bound Bible with the young man's name embossed in gold. Angry, he raised his voice to his father and said, "With all your money, you give me a Bible?" and stormed out of the house. Many years passed, and the young man was a very successful businessman. He had a beautiful home, a wonderful family, but realized his father was very old and thought perhaps he should go to him. He had not seen him since that graduation day. Before he could make arrangements, he received a telegram telling him his father had passed away and willed all his possessions to his son. He needed to come home immediately and take care of things. When he arrived at his father's house, suddenly sadness and regret filled his heart. He began to search through his father's important papers and saw the still gift-wrapped Bible, just as he had left it years ago. With tears, he opened the Bible and began to turn the pages. His father had carefully underlined a verse, Matthew 7:11. And if ye being evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more shall your heavenly Father, which is in heaven, give those who ask him? As he read those words, a car key drops from the back of the Bible. It had a tag with the dealer's name, the same dealer who had the sports car he had desired. On the tag was the date of his graduation and the words, paid in full. How many times do we miss God's blessings because we can't see past our own desires? What's the qualification of this text? For those who what? Are loving Him. Not loving Him for what He can do for you. Not loving Him for the blessings He gives you, but just plain what? Loving Him. That's one of the qualifications. And why is time sweeping away from us? All right. The second boundary of this text. What is meant by the good? What is meant by the word good in this text? Look at the context And you have to go to the next verse to figure out what the good is talked about. In verse 29, very clear. This is where many misinterpret the text. This is where many people say, well, God works all things for the good. What is the good? Verse 29. If good means rich, this is not true, since most sincere Christians have not been given a great supply of this world's goods. If good means healthy, it is evident that not all believers have good health. If good, the good cannot mean successful, the good cannot mean admired or even happy, since many sincere Christians endure failure and scorn or very distressing personal experiences and disappointments. The answer is in verse 29. What is the good? The good that Paul is talking about is to become conformed to the image of his Son. The good in that text, all things work for the good. The good is to be Christ-like. God is working to make you Christ-like.